Why are you ignoring me? I've decided not to talk to people I don't know. I get it. I'll move out of my in-laws' place. They're totally ignoring me. I expected it from my mother-in-law, but I never thought my father-in-law would treat me this way. There's a reason why my in-laws, who used to be nice, changed. It's because of my sister-in-law who doesn't like me. Ever since she came back home, our peaceful life together has been completely messed up. Don't expect me to regret it, okay? You think I'm gonna feel sorry about this? Think again, jerk. I packed my stuff and left my in-laws' house. And guess what? Just 3 days after I left, their house turned into chaos. I met my husband at work. He worked in sales and came to my office often, and I was the main person he dealt with. As we spent more time together in meetings and chats, I started to like him. He was caring and kind, tall and not necessarily conventionally handsome. But he had this charm about him. He was popular, but for some reason, he said he liked me, and we started going out. We talked about our families, and he told me about his parents and sister. I lost my parents in an accident when I was young and grew up in an orphanage. It was a big deal for me, but when we started dating, I told him about my past. He said, "That sounds tough, but I'll always be there for you." And then he asked me to marry him. Right from the start, my husband wanted us to get married, so he quickly introduced me to his parents. During the meeting, I shared about my time growing up in an orphanage. They listened carefully and assured me that it wouldn't affect our marriage. It made me really happy. They even said that my background had no bearing on being part of their family, which warmed my heart. Only my sister-in-law, who was very close to her brother, seemed surprised, asking, "You grew up in an orphanage?" My husband had to talk to her about it. Looking back, she probably didn't like me from the start. But I didn't dwell on it then. I just thought we were getting to know each other. Before we got married, my husband and I talked about moving in with his parents. We thought about it seriously, but in the end, I decided not to leave my job. It turned out my husband was going to be transferred soon anyway. I thought about quitting to go with him, but my career was going strong, and I had just been given more responsibilities. After discussing it, we decided he would move alone. After tying the knot, I wanted to enjoy that newlywed bliss for a while. I even casually thought about visiting my husband during long weekends for a little getaway. The idea of moving in with my in-laws right after marriage seemed a bit daunting, but my husband probably felt more comfortable living with them. Plus, he likely wanted to reassure his always worried mother by having us all under one roof. Since I lost my parents early on, I'd always longed for a family, so living with them didn't sound too bad. Besides, my in-laws had always treated me kindly, and I'd grown fond of them. Juggling work and my responsibilities as a daughter-in-law was tough, but having a family made me happy and fulfilled. Then one day, my father-in-law approached me with an unexpected request. This marked the beginning of some tension in our seemingly happy living arrangement. It was a time when my overly anxious mother-in-law, who tended to be a bit controlling with my father-in-law, was out shopping. I was about to start cleaning on my day off when my father-in-law asked to talk to me. "What's up?" "Well, I don't want my wife to find out, but I'm taking a leave from work." "Wait, a leave?" He explained that he'd been having issues with his boss and colleagues, and his health had gotten so bad that he had no choice but to take time off. My mother-in-law is generally a kind person, but she's always on edge and a bit obsessive. Living with them, I started to notice her anxious habits and how my father-in-law walked on eggshells around her to avoid upsetting her. He had always been slim, but looking back, I realized he had lost even more weight recently. It would have been comforting if my mother-in-law showed genuine concern about his weight loss. Instead, when he took a sick day for a cold before, she commented, "A cold. Everyone else at your level is already at the top. It's because you're always taking time off for silly reasons like colds. That's why you're not getting promoted." Rather than being caring, she was the type to be critical. He probably tried to soldier on no matter how bad he felt. But his health kept declining, and he started taking more sick days to secretly visit the hospital. He was really struggling both mentally and physically. With his frequent early departures, lateness, and days off, there was talk of him possibly needing to take a break from work. But my father-in-law was hesitant to upset my mother-in-law in any way. If he even suggested taking time off, she'd likely explode with anger. Plus, my father-in-law didn't earn much, and he relied on overtime pay, so taking a break would mean a significant drop in income. If he told my husband, he'd probably end up telling my mother-in-law, so he came to me, asking if I could help with the bills. If I mentioned taking a break, she might even leave me. Those words hit me hard. I was grateful to my in-laws for accepting me warmly, regardless of my background growing up in an institution. Determined to be there for them, I decided to assist him during this tough period. I understand. I'll send money to your account every month. Use it for expenses. I'm really sorry. I'll try my best to get better soon and go back to work. Thank you for trusting me. After that, my father-in-law continued his routine of pretending to go to work while I sent money to his bank account for living expenses. My mother-in-law, who wasn't very meticulous with her finances, never noticed my transfers because she didn't check her bank statements closely or keep track of household expenses. Meanwhile, my father-in-law would pretend to head to work, but instead visit a mental health clinic or take walks in the peaceful mountains. Over time, his health seemed to improve. I hoped he'd be back to work soon, but then something unexpected happened. After a disagreement with her husband, my sister-in-law decided to go back to her parents' home. There's no place like home. I felt like I was going crazy living with that idiot husband of mine. I'll be staying here for a while. Can you make meals for me too? I knew right from the start that my sister-in-law wasn't fond of me. At our first family gathering, my husband was visibly upset because of her obvious disapproval. During our wedding, she wore a sour expression the whole time and even told me straight to my face, "My brother looks great, but you? He could have done better." She didn't hide her disdain for me, mentioning that it was embarrassing that I grew up without parents to attend the wedding. However, since she got married before us and had already moved out, I figured our interactions would be limited. That's why I thought living with them wouldn't be too bad. If she had still been living at home, I wouldn't have even considered moving in, knowing I'd have to deal with her constant criticism. Despite her stern attitude towards my father-in-law, I assumed her stay was temporary because of her marital issues and expected her to leave within a few days. My mother-in-law had always been kind to me, and even when my sister-in-law made snarky remarks, I trusted that my mother-in-law would stand up for me. But I was mistaken. One evening, when I came home from work, my mother-in-law's demeanor seemed off. "Is everything okay?" I asked. She seemed distant, not engaging in our usual conversation. When I inquired, she said, "Did you know you've been speaking ill of me behind my back?" "What? I've never said anything negative about you. You've always treated me well, and I'm genuinely grateful. Why would I say anything bad? You've been acting like the perfect daughter-in-law, but you've been gossiping about me in secret." "Fine, whatever," I replied, and she left the room. As she walked away, my sister-in-law smirked. "Looks like you've fallen out of favor. Did your true colors come out? Your upbringing in an institution is really showing, huh? It's better not to gossip about people." "I haven't said anything bad about her." "Oh, it seems the neighbors heard you. When I returned after so long, they mentioned that you've been constantly criticizing her." "What? Who? Are these neighbors?" "Well, it's been a while since I got married and moved out, so I've kind of forgotten their names. I never said any of those things. Stop making things up." "Oh my, how rude of you, Mom. You're accusing me of lying and bullying," she said, storming into my mother-in-law's room. From that moment on, my sister-in-law's nasty behavior only got worse. She accused me of telling her to sleep in the hallway and take the last bath because she's just a guest. She nitpicked about every little thing and complained to my mother-in-law. Each time, I had to defend myself, explaining that I hadn't said or done any of those things. But my mother-in-law seemed completely swayed by my sister-in-law's words, falling under her influence. My sister-in-law carried on as if she had no intention of leaving anytime soon, leaving me worried sick as I headed home with a heavy heart. "I'm back," I announced, hoping for the usual warm greeting from my mother-in-law. Instead, there was silence. "I'll start dinner," I said, stepping into the living room, only to be greeted by a shocking sight. Normally, my sister-in-law would rush me to prepare dinner, but now my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and sister-in-law were all enjoying sushi together. Surprised, my sister-in-law remarked, "Looks like someone who's not part of the family is home. You're not planning on having sushi, are you?" Without a glance in my direction, my mother-in-law continued eating while watching TV. "If you wanted sushi, you should have said so." I hurried back after shopping. "Huh, no one mentioned that," I sighed. "Hey Mom, Dad, I hung out with my friends today and brought back some delicious pudding. Let's enjoy it together." My sister-in-law chimed in, ignoring me completely as they all began eating the pudding. Exhausted from work and lacking the energy to confront them, I retreated to my room without eating. The next day, my sister-in-law mentioned she was meeting friends and asked if I could drop her off at the station. I declined, as it was a work day, and we weren't heading the same way. "Come on, take a day off. It's not a big deal. Your dear sis-in-law just wants a lift. She hasn't had much fun since getting married, right? Can't you be a bit nicer?" Respectfully, "Didn't you go out with friends last night after a late call? It seems like you've been going out almost every day since you got back." "I have work. Please take the bus or train," I replied. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were whispering in the background, but I had enough. I headed to work. That night, however, the moment that convinced me to leave happened. I was delayed at work and returned home after picking up groceries, expecting some sort of scolding. It had been raining heavily when I left the office, and I was soaked even getting in and out of the car. I wondered what unpleasant surprise awaited me at home, but when I arrived, the three of them were eating takeout just like the day before. No greeting, as if they hadn't even noticed I'd returned. But I've grown accustomed to this treatment. Glancing towards the courtyard from the hallway, I noticed something placed in the center of the garden. Upon closer inspection, it was my belongings. A designer bag I'd bought with my first paycheck, shoes that were a birthday gift from my husband, and even my work computer, now soaked. Shocked, I stood frozen as my sister-in-law smirked and remarked, "Having a stranger's things in the house was gross, so I got rid of them." Flaunting a designer bag like that? How arrogant. Neither of my in-laws said a word about her appalling behavior. Why didn't you intervene? What have I done to deserve this treatment? Do you truly believe her lies about me badmouthing and bullying her? Aren't you angry with her for what she did? My mother-in-law avoided eye contact, remaining silent. "Why won't you speak up? I can't talk to strangers. I can't be friendly with someone who isn't family," she finally replied, still refusing to acknowledge me. My sister-in-law grinned, waiting for my response. "And where's my father-in-law? I'm the one supporting him during his time off. I'm the one contributing to the household finances. Yes, I did it out of gratitude, but shouldn't he stand up for me now? Surely, he would be on my side." Hoping for some support, I looked to him, but he brushed past me without a word and retreated to his room. That was the final straw for me. "I've had enough. Are you upset?" "I'm sorry, but let's be honest. I never liked you from the start. What with your background growing up in an institution? Just don't regret this like I would loser." I gathered my belongings and prepared to leave immediately. Only my father-in-law seemed flustered, realizing he depended on me financially. Yet he made no attempt to stop me or defend me. I was utterly disillusioned by his indifference. I drove to my husband's distant work assignment, eager to leave the turmoil of my in-laws' house behind as soon as possible. Throughout the journey, I never once opened up to my husband about what had been happening. I doubted my mother-in-law had informed him about my sister-in-law's return. If he had known, he would have surely reached out to me, aware of the strained relationship between us. Yet my husband never mentioned anything about my sister-in-law in his calls or messages. While I didn't sense anything unusual in my husband's behavior, I couldn't shake the feeling that he might be influenced by her, fed lies about various matters. Even now, as I made my way to him, I couldn't shake the fear that he would treat me with the same indifference as the others. My heart ached with exhaustion, torn by suspicion, even toward my husband, the person I trusted most. If he shared their mindset and attitude, perhaps divorce was the only solution. That's how deeply distressed I felt. When I arrived at his out-of-state apartment, he hadn't returned yet, likely caught up with end-of-month work obligations. As I waited, my husband energetically walked in, perhaps noticing the lights on. "What if I knew you were coming?" "I would have rushed home," he exclaimed. "What a pleasant surprise. Just seeing your face." His radiant smile immediately lifted my spirits. The relief of seeing him genuinely happy to see me, combined with the lingering humiliation from my in-laws' home, overwhelmed me, and I couldn't hold back the flood of emotions any longer. Tears streamed down my face as I broke down in his arms. "What's wrong? Did something happen? Please tell me," my husband implored, clearly unaware of the treatment I endured at his parents' home. Gathering myself, I knew I needed to explain everything to him clearly. I recounted the whole ordeal. How I'd been supporting his father financially, who had taken medical leave without informing his wife. How his sister had returned and poisoned his mother against me with lies. How they treated me as an outsider, ignored me, and left my belongings out in the rain, ruining them. Through tears and pauses, I laid it all out for him. Finally, I made it clear that I had no intention of ever going back to that house, and if he couldn't support me on this, I'd seek a divorce. My husband apologized for being too preoccupied with work and not checking in on me more often, expressing regret over his family's behavior toward me. "You don't have to go back there or even speak to them," he assured me. "Even if I were to forgive them, I'm cutting ties with my parents and sister." He also vowed to stop providing financial aid to his father. That night, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. The tension dissolved, and I slept peacefully by his side. After leaving my in-laws' house, I never returned. While commuting from my husband's out-of-state location wasn't feasible, I had already discussed with my company the possibility of working remotely. Since my sister-in-law and mother-in-law had begun treating me harshly, my job didn't necessarily require me to be in the office all the time. Many of my colleagues and supervisors also worked remotely. Although I still needed to visit the office a few times a month, several colleagues lived even farther away, so transitioning to remote work wasn't an issue. I hadn't truly experienced married life since moving in with his family and dealing with my sister-in-law's bullying. But now we could finally live like newlyweds. As I was setting up my remote workstation, as expected, my sister-in-law contacted me. It turned out that the day after I left their house was the day my father-in-law was supposed to get paid. Usually, my mother-in-law withdrew a certain amount and transferred it to their household account on payday, but this time she couldn't. Of course not. Until now, I have been supplementing my father-in-law's reduced salary due to his time off, I thought. Upon checking their balance, my mother-in-law confronted him, and he confessed that I had been helping them financially. "Hey, why didn't you tell me you were covering the living expenses?" "He told me not to, saying he didn't want you to know, so I kept it a secret. Anyway, we're running out of money for living expenses, and there's no one to cook or do laundry. The room is a mess. As his wife, you need to come back and take care of these things and transfer money quickly." How heartless. I told you, didn't I? I don't regret this. I have no intention of going back to that house or continuing as your maid. Why should I help people who hate me, destroy my belongings, and treat me like this? Aren't you his wife? Without your help, we can't pay the electricity or gas bills. We can't even go shopping. That's why I said it. I'm an outsider, so it's none of my business, right? I hung up, ignoring my sister-in-law's ranting. Despite their relentless calls and messages, I continued to ignore my sister-in-law and mother-in-law. Even after my husband returned from work, they persisted in their attempts to contact us. When my husband finally answered, he firmly declared, "I'll never forgive you for how you treated her, and I'm never sending her back to you." I'm not coming back either. I don't consider you my family anymore. Stay away from my wife, or you'll regret it. Given my sister-in-law's affection for her brother and my mother-in-law's dependence on him, they were likely shocked by his words. A few days later, my father-in-law reached out, pleading for continued financial assistance. Despite their acceptance of me, a girl from an orphanage, into their family, I couldn't overlook their lack of support during my time of need, despite all the help I had provided. I don't owe them anything. Why should I help those who ignored me? I'll never assist you again, I firmly stated before ending the call. Subsequently, my persistent mother-in-law and sister-in-law audaciously appeared at my workplace. Anticipating trouble, I had informed my company beforehand and security was immediately alerted. They caused a scene, demanding that I send money back home. Upon hearing this, my husband insisted, report them to the police. My colleagues at work were supportive, expressing disbelief at my past living situation. Focus on your remote work, they encouraged. Meanwhile, the pressure from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law took a toll on my father-in-law's health, leading to his resignation. My sister-in-law attempted to return to her husband's family, only to be rejected due to her affair, which had been the original cause of their conflict. This incident exacerbated their problems, resulting in an immediate divorce. Left without a home, my in-laws and sister-in-law relocated to a modest apartment, finding employment in part-time positions to make ends meet. Meanwhile, my husband and I finally found peace and fulfillment in our lives. Recently, we received the joyful news of our impending parenthood and eagerly await the arrival of our child, cherishing each moment together.
The memorial hall reeked of lilies and false sympathy. I stood at the entrance, watching my stepmother Diane orchestrate my father's farewell like a society gala. Her black Chanel suit impeccable despite the Miami humidity. She air-kissed arriving guests while my half-siblings, Marcus and Sophia, flanked her like well-trained show dogs. Samuani ni dis tiu agandil ya catrng. And since you are not really FMIL. Diane's voice cut through the murmured condolences as she noticed me. She pointed one manicured finger toward the kitchen, her diamond bracelet catching the light. The staff could use help with the coffee service. I didn't move immediately, studying the woman who'd married my father 6 years ago when I was 18 and still grieving my mother. The woman who'd systematically erased every trace of my mother from our family home and relegated me to the guest house for everyone's comfort. Did you hear me, Amelia? Her voice sharpened. The partners from Morrison and Associates just arrived. Real family needs to greet them properly. Real family. As if sharing my father's DNA for 24 years meant less than her 6 years of marriage and the twins she'd brought from her previous relationship. Of course, I said quietly, smoothing my simple black dress. The only one I owned, purchased hastily when I received the news of my father's sudden heart attack. I wouldn't want to embarrass anyone. Marcus smirked as I passed. At 21, he'd already perfected Diane's dismissive attitude. Try not to spill anything, he muttered. These people actually matter. The kitchen was a chaos of caterers who looked at me with confusion when I entered. I wasn't dressed like staff, but here I was assigned to pour coffee for my father's memorial guests. The head caterer, a kind-faced woman named Elena, recognized me from the few family dinners I'd been permitted to attend. Miss Amelia, you should be. It's fine, I interrupted, tying an apron over my dress. Just tell me what needs to be done. For the next hour, I served coffee to my father's colleagues, friends, and business partners. Some recognized me and showed flickers of confusion or pity. Most didn't spare me a second glance. I was invisible, just as Diane had intended. Cream, no sugar, Mr. Morrison himself ordered without looking up from his phone. I'd known him since I was 10, when he'd helped my father establish the real estate empire that had made our family fortune. Now he couldn't even recognize the daughter of his oldest client. As I moved through the crowd with my coffee pot, I caught fragments of conversation. Diane holding court near the portrait of my father, dabbing at dry eyes with a handkerchief. Douglas was so generous, she sighed to a group of society women, making sure the children and I would be taken care of. He knew Marcus would run the company beautifully, and Sophie has such a head for numbers. Family was everything to him. I nearly dropped the coffee pot. The children. As if I didn't exist at all. More coffee here. Someone called, and I dutifully responded, filling cups while my father's life was reduced to anecdotes and asset discussions. It was while serving the lawyers, 3 partners from Morrison and Associates huddled near the window, that everything changed. The will reading is scheduled for tomorrow, Mr. Morrison was saying. Diane wants it handled quickly. The estate is substantial, but straightforward. Everything to the surviving spouse, with trusts for the 3 children. 3 children. At least I rated a mention in the legal documents. About that, his younger partner, Mr. Reeves, said nervously. There's been a development. The court received a subsequent filing last month, a new will. I froze, coffee pot suspended over a partner's cup. Mr. Morrison's face darkened. What do you mean, a new will? Filed properly, witnessed, notarized, and Douglas came to our office personally to ensure it was handled correctly. He was very specific about the timing. That's impossible, Morrison snapped. I have the will right here, drafted 2 years ago. This one is dated 3 weeks before his death, Reeves interrupted. It supersedes everything else. Through the archway, I could see Diane chatting with guests, oblivious to the bomb about to detonate in her perfectly orchestrated world. I forced my hands to stay steady as I finished pouring the coffee. What does it say? Morrison demanded. Reeves glanced around nervously, but I was just the help, invisible with my coffee pot. It's comprehensive, and very different from what Mrs. Sullivan expects. I moved away, my heart pounding. My father had changed his will. 3 weeks before his death, he'd made new arrangements. Why? What had prompted him to? Amelia? I turned to find Mr. Castellano, my father's oldest friend and business mentor, studying me with knowing eyes. Unlike the others, he'd recognized me immediately despite my servile position. Vincent, I managed, setting down the coffee pot to accept his embrace. What are you doing? He asked quietly, glancing at my apron. Why argue with the family? I am exactly where Diane wants me, I replied. His expression hardened. I see, your father would be. He stopped, shaking his head. He was very proud of you, talked about you constantly. Your graduate degree, your volunteer work, your mother's spirit living on in you. Tears threatened for the first time since I'd learned of my father's death. He had a funny way of showing it. I haven't been allowed at a family dinner in 2 years. Allowed? Vincent's eyebrows rose. Your father said you were too busy with school, that you preferred your independence. I stared at him. He said that. Vincent, Diane told me I wasn't welcome unless I could respect the new family dynamic. I've been living in a studio apartment near campus because she converted the guest house into a gym for Marcus. Vincent's face went through several expressions before settling on cold fury. That explains so much, he muttered. Douglas seemed different the last few months. Distracted. He kept asking me about trust structures and estate protection. I thought he was just being thorough. As I poured coffee for the years, I hear Diane's gasp from across the room. What do you mean, the betrayal is unforgettable? Every conversation stopped. Diane stood frozen by the memorial portrait, her face draining of color as Mr. Morrison approached her with visible reluctance. The LAWREPLI. The real YLUASFILED asked Monte. Perhaps we should ask Miss Amelia Sullivan to join us. She's named as the primary executor. The coffee pot slipped from my hands, shattering on the marble floor. Dark liquid spread across the white stone like blood, but no one noticed. Every eye in the room had turned to me, the invisible daughter, the servant, the afterthought. That's impossible. Diane's voice climbed to a shriek. She's not. Douglas would never. I have the documents right here, Mr. Reeves said firmly. Shall we move this discussion somewhere private? Vincent's hand settled on my shoulder, warm and steadying. Go, he murmured. I'll handle the cleanup. Your father's lawyer is waiting in the study. I untied my apron with trembling fingers, letting it fall onto a nearby chair. The crowd parted as I walked through the memorial hall, their whispers following me like rustling leaves. Diane's children stood slack-jawed while their mother's carefully composed facade cracked like old paint. The study had been my father's sanctuary, though I'd rarely been allowed inside after Diane's arrival. Now I entered to find not just Mr. Reeves, but two other lawyers I didn't recognize, along with a court officer. Miss Sullivan, one of the unfamiliar lawyers, stood. I'm James Whitman from Whitman and Associates. Your father engaged our services privately for this matter. Please sit down. There's a lot to discuss. I sank into the leather chair across from them, my mind reeling. I don't understand. My father and I, we weren't close. Not for years. That's what he wanted everyone to believe, Whitman said gently. But Douglas Sullivan was a very thorough man. He's been investigating some irregularities in his household finances for the past year. What he discovered prompted him to take immediate action. He handed me a thick folder. Inside were bank statements, emails, photographs. Comprehensive investigation into Diane's activities. Your stepmother has been systematically embezzling from your father's companies, Whitman explained. Funneling money to offshore accounts, using corporate funds for personal expenses, and most damning, forging your signature on documents removing you from family trusts. I stared at the evidence. She forged my signature. Multiple times. She also intercepted your letters to your father, rerouted your emails to a dummy account, and told him you wanted nothing to do with the family. Meanwhile, she was telling you that you weren't welcome. A classic manipulation technique to isolate her target. My hands shook as I processed this. All those years of feeling abandoned, unwanted, it had been orchestrated. Your father was devastated when he discovered the truth. Whitman continued. He wanted to confront her immediately, but we advised him to wait, to ensure everything was legally airtight. He rewrote his will to ensure you would be protected and that justice would be served. What exactly did he do? I asked, though part of me already knew. Whitman smiled grimly. Douglas Sullivan left you in complete control, not just of his estate, but of the entire Sullivan empire. You are the sole trustee with absolute discretion over distributions to other beneficiaries. Your stepmother and her children will receive generous allowances, but only at your discretion and only if they meet certain conditions. The door burst open. Diane stood there, her perfect composure shattered, mascara streaming down her cheeks. This is fraud. I'll contest it. You'll do nothing, the court officer said calmly. Mrs. Sullivan, I'm Detective Martinez with the Financial Crimes Division. We need to discuss the embezzlement charges your late husband filed before his death. Diane's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Behind her, Marcus and Sophia clustered in the doorway, their earlier arrogance replaced by fear. Additionally, Whitman added, there's the matter of elder abuse. Isolating Mr. Sullivan from his daughter, controlling his communications, financial exploitation. These are serious charges. Amelia, Diane's voice cracked as she focused on me. Sweetheart, we're family. Surely you don't want family? I stood slowly, finding my voice at last. You told me I wasn't family. You made me serve coffee at my own father's memorial. You stole years from us, years I can never get back. I'll make it right, she pleaded. The money, I can return it. It's not about the money, I said quietly. It's about the lies, the manipulation, the cruelty. I looked at Marcus and Sophia, who seemed to shrink under my gaze. Did you know? Were you part of it? We didn't, Sophia started. They knew you weren't getting Dad's emails, Marcus admitted, unable to meet my highs. Mom said it was better that way, said you were after the money. The irony almost made me laugh. The one who was after the money was accusing me of being a gold digger. Detective Martinez stepped forward. Mrs. Sullivan, we need you to come with us for questioning. As Diane was led away, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood, she turned back one last time. Your father loved me, she said desperately. I made him happy. You made him a fool, Vincent said from the doorway. He'd been listening, along with half the memorial guests who'd followed the drama. But he figured it out in the end. That's why we're here. The study empty except for me, the lawyers, and Vincent. I sank back into the chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had just happened. There's one more thing, Whitman said gently, pulling out an envelope. Your father left you a personal letter. He asked that you read it privately when you're ready. I took the envelope with my name written in my father's distinctive handwriting. Not yet. I wasn't ready yet. What happens now? I asked instead. Now, Vincent said, sitting beside me, you decide what kind of person you want to be. Your father left you power, absolute power over the people who wronged you. What you do with it will define who you are. I thought about Diane in handcuffs, about Marcus and Sophia's stricken faces, about the years of loneliness and rejection. The urge for revenge was strong, to use my newfound power to make them suffer as I had suffered. But then I remembered my mother, her grace and kindness, the values she tried to instill before cancer took her. I remembered my father before Diane, how he built his empire not through cruelty but through fair dealing and hard work. Set up a trust for Marcus and Sophia's education, I said finally. Full tuition and living expenses, but they have to maintain their grades and perform community service. Give them a chance to become better than what they've been taught. Whitman nodded, making notes. And Diane? Vincent asked. Let the law handle her crimes, I decided. But ensure she has a legal defense. I won't become her by denying basic rights. You're more generous than she deserves, Vincent observed. No, I corrected. I'm exactly as generous as my parents raised me to be. Both of them. Later that evening, after the lawyers had gone and the memorial hall stood empty, I finally opened my father's letter. His handwriting blurred through my tears as I read. My dearest Amelia, if you're reading this, then I've failed you in life but hope to make it right in death. I discovered too late how thoroughly I was deceived, how cruelly you were separated from me. The investigators' reports broke my heart. All those letters you sent, all those attempts to reach out that never reached me. I was a fool, blinded by loneliness after your mother's death, manipulated by someone who saw opportunity in my grief. But you, my daughter, were never far from my thoughts. Every achievement of yours that I learned about through others filled me with pride. Your mother's strength lives in you. I've arranged things to give you the power to seek justice or mercy as you see fit. Whatever you choose, know that I trust your judgment. You are my true heir, not just in wealth but in spirit. I'm sorry for the lost years. I'm sorry for the pain. I hope someday you can forgive a foolish old man who loved you more than he knew how to show. All my love, Dad. I clutched the letter to my chest, finally allowing the tears to fall. The memorial guests were gone. The coffee was cleaned up, and I sat alone in my father's study, no longer the invisible daughter but the guardian of his legacy. Through the window, I could see the gardener tending to my mother's rose garden, the one piece of her that Diane hadn't been able to erase. Tomorrow, I would have them plant new roses, one for each year we'd lost and one for the future we'd never have. But I would build something from the ashes of our broken family, not what Diane had tried to create through manipulation and greed, but something real, something worthy of both my parents' memory. The coffee pot had shattered, but from its scattered pieces, I would create a mosaic of justice, mercy, and hope. It's what they would have wanted. It's what I wanted too. As I locked my father's study and walked through the empty house, I realized the most profound truth. Power isn't about controlling others or seeking revenge. It's about choosing who you become when you have every reason to become someone cruel. I chose to remain my parents' daughter, both of them. And that was the greatest inheritance of all. Your sister needed it more, Mom justified. But when the bank's fraud department traced the transfers, they found $47,000 taken during my cancer treatment. The FI agent looked at my parents and said, "What happened next?" "Your daughter didn't just steal money," Agent Catherine Brooks said, her voice cutting through my parents' protests. "She accessed her sister's account 127 times while she was unconscious in chemotherapy. She watched her sister's cancer fund donations come in and stole them within hours. This is wire fraud, identity theft, and given that some donations crossed state lines, it's federal. My name is Julia, and I'm writing this from my hospital bed, where I'm recovering not just from stage 3 breast cancer, but from the betrayal that cut deeper than any surgeon's knife. It started 8 months ago when I was diagnosed. 29 years old, single, and suddenly facing the fight of my life. The medical bills were staggering. Insurance covered some, but with experimental treatments, specialized surgeons, and months of inability to work, I was looking at over $200,000 in costs. My community rallied. Friends organized fundraisers, coworkers donated PTOs so I could keep my benefits, and strangers contributed to my GoFundMe. Within 3 months, we'd raised $47,000, enough to cover my immediate treatments and keep me afloat during recovery. My younger sister Lauren was my designated helper. She managed my appointments when chemo brain made me foggy, handled my bills when I was too sick to focus, and had access to my accounts to pay for medications and treatments. Don't worry about anything, she'd said, holding my hand during my first treatment. I've got you, just focus on getting better. I trusted her completely. Lauren was the golden child, married to a successful developer, living in a gorgeous house, driving a new Range Rover. Why would I question her? The first sign something was wrong came during month 4 of treatment. A bill from my oncologist bounced. That's impossible, I told the billing clerk from my hospital bed. I have over $30,000 in that account. She rechecked. I'm showing a balance of $346. I was too weak to investigate properly. When I asked Lauren, she said there must be a banking error, that she'd handle it. I was having surgery the next day. I had to trust her. But bills kept bouncing. The specialty pharmacy called about unpaid prescriptions. My landlord said my rent check was returned. Each time, Lauren had an explanation. Banking delays, insurance mix-ups, administrative errors. You're so sick, Jules, she'd say, tears in her eyes. Let me handle this stress for you. Then came the day that changed everything. My friend Melissa, who'd organized my main fundraiser, called while I was getting my 7th round of chemo. Julia, I'm looking at your GoFundMe, and it says you've withdrawn everything. Are you okay? Do you need more help? I haven't withdrawn anything, I said, my chemo-fogged brain struggling. Lauren handles the banking. Julia, Melissa's voice was strange. I can see the withdrawal history. It's all going to an account that isn't yours. With shaking hands, I opened my banking app for the first time in months. What I saw made me vomit, and not from the chemo. $47,000. Gone. Transferred out in increments over 4 months. $2,000 here, $3,500 there. Always just under the amounts that would trigger federal reporting. But it was the timing that shattered me. She'd taken $5,000 the day after my double mastectomy, $3,000 while I was unconscious during reconstruction surgery, $4,500 during a week I was in ICU with an infection, fighting for my life. I called my parents, hysterical. They came to the hospital immediately, but their reaction wasn't what I expected. There must be an explanation, Mom said, not meeting my eyes. Check with Lauren first before making accusations, Dad added. Family doesn't steal from family. But I was done checking. I called my bank's fraud department from my hospital bed, IV still on my arm, and reported the theft. The investigation was swift and damning. The transfers all went to accounts belonging to Lauren and her husband Blake. The metadata showed the transfers were made from Lauren's phone, often while she was supposed to be at the hospital with me. This is systematic theft, the fraud investigator told me. The pattern suggests someone who knew exactly when you'd be incapacitated and unable to notice. When Detective Michael Torres arrived at my hospital room, he brought evidence that made everything worse. Your sister didn't just take your medical fund, he said, showing me printed records. She also opened 3 credit cards in your name, maxing them out. Another $18,000 in debt. She used your social security number, your date of birth, everything she had access to as your medical power of attorney. But she has money, I whispered. The house, the cars. Detective Torres' expression was grim. We've discovered your sister and her husband have been living far beyond their means. They're facing foreclosure, bankruptcy. Your medical fund was keeping them afloat. The confrontation happened in my hospital room because I was too weak to leave. Lauren arrived with our parents, playing the concerned sister until she saw Detective Torres. Jules, what's going on? She tried for innocence, but her voice shook. You stole my cancer fund, I said flatly. All of it. While I was dying, you were stealing from me. I was going to pay it back. The admission burst out of her. Blake's development deal fell through. We just needed a loan. A loan? I struggled to sit up, rage giving me strength. You took money people donated to keep me alive. I couldn't pay for my medications because of you. Your sister needed it more, Mom interjected. She has a family, a mortgage. You're single. No kids. I hear you CANCER. I screamed. I needed that money for CHEMTHERAPY. Family shares everything, Dad said weakly. Lauren was going through a hard time. I was going through cancer. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She watched me suffer, held my hand during chemo, then went home and stole the money meant to save my life. Agent Brooks from the FBI arrived then, having been called in due to the interstate nature of the fraud. Donations had come from across the country. Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton. She said to my parents, "Are you aware that your daughter Lauren accessed Julia's account 127 times during her treatment? That she specifically timed the thefts for when Julia was unconscious or incapacitated." My parents' faces went white. Furthermore, Agent Brooks continued, "We have evidence Lauren researched Julia's treatment schedule, accessed her medical records to know when she'd be most vulnerable, and even delayed paying certain medical bills to keep more money available for theft. She knew when I'd be too sick to check," I realized aloud. She volunteered to be my medical advocate to have access. Lauren broke down. "You don't understand the pressure. Everyone expects us to be perfect. The house, the lifestyle. Blake would leave me if he knew we were broke. So you decided I should die instead?" I asked. "Because that's what happens when cancer patients can't afford treatment, Lauren. They die." "You're being dramatic. 3 of my treatments were delayed because of bounced payments. I cut her off. My surgeon almost canceled my reconstruction. The infection I got? That was because I couldn't afford the premium antibiotics and had to take the generic that I'm allergic to. You remember that infection, right? The one that almost killed me." Lauren went silent. "You visited me in the ICU," I continued, "cried about how scared you were of losing me, then stole another $4,500 while I was on a ventilator." The arrest was swift. Lauren was charged with wire fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. Blake was charged as an accessory. They found evidence he'd helped plan the thefts, even creating fake invoices for medical equipment to cover their tracks. But it was my parents' reaction that hurt almost as much as the betrayal. "You're really going to send your sister to prison?" Mom asked. "Over money?" "She stole my cancer fund," I said for what felt like the 100th time. "She could have killed me." "But she didn't," Dad argued. "You're getting better. Why ruin her life?" "She ruined her own life when she chose theft over my life," I replied. They sided with Lauren through the trial, hiring her lawyers, putting up their retirement for her bail. They testified that I'd always been selfish with money, and that Lauren was just borrowing what families should share freely. The evidence was overwhelming. The banking records, the timed thefts, the credit cards, the fake invoices. But what sealed Lauren's fate was a text exchange between her and Blake that investigators found. "Blake, how much more can you get?" "Lauren, she's going into surgery tomorrow. Should be out for hours. I can probably move $5,000 without triggering alerts." Blake, "Perfect. The mortgage is due." Lauren, "I feel bad. She looked really sick today." Blake, "It's just money. She'll get more donations." Lauren, "True, and it's not like she has kids to support. We need it more." Listening to those texts read in court while still bald from chemo, still weak from radiation, still carrying the scars from surgeries I almost couldn't afford, it broke something in me that cancer hadn't touched. Lauren was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Blake got 3. The judge was particularly harsh because of the premeditated nature, using my medical schedule to time thefts, taking advantage of my vulnerable state. "This wasn't a desperate decision," the judge said. "This was calculated cruelty against a family member fighting for their life." My parents still visit Lauren in prison. They've cut me off completely, saying I'm heartless for not forgiving family. Extended relatives are split, some appalled by what Lauren did, others saying I should have just given her the money as she needed it. I've had to rebuild everything. The community that originally donated rallied again when the story made the news, raising enough to cover my remaining treatments. My friend Melissa manages the funds now. I'll never give family financial access again. The cancer is in remission. I'm winning that battle. But the betrayal metastasized through my family in ways that no radiation can touch. I lost more than money. I lost the sister who was supposed to be my rock, parents who should have protected me, and the naive belief that blood means loyalty. Lauren writes me letters from prison. I don't read them. Mom sends messages through friends saying Lauren is sorry, that she's suffered enough, that I'm killing them with my coldness. But I'm alive. Against the cancer's odds and Lauren's theft, I'm alive. I survived malignant cells and malignant family. The medical debt is crushing, the family loss devastating. But every morning I wake up is a victory Lauren tried to steal from me. She thought my cancer made me weak, vulnerable, an easy target. She was wrong. Cancer taught me to fight for my life. When she tried to take that life through theft, She learned that survivors don't just survive disease. We survive betrayal too, even when it comes from the people who should love us most. Especially then. The first sign something was wrong came when my 7-year-old son Lucas ran into the kitchen crying, iPad clutched in his small hands. "Mom, why did Grandma say I ruined pictures?" His voice wobbled as tears streaked down his face. "What?" I set down my coffee, kneeling to his level. "Grandma would never say that, sweetheart. Look." He thrust the iPad at me, showing my mother's Facebook page. The cover photo was from last month's family reunion, except something was horribly wrong. I was there. My husband David was there. My sister Rebecca and her twins were there. My parents beamed in the center. But Lucas, who had been standing right between David and me, was gone. Not cropped out, completely erased, like he'd never existed. That's weird. I managed, scrolling down. Must be a mistake. But it wasn't a mistake. Every photo from the reunion had been edited. The group shot by the lake, Lucas removed. The cousins playing together, only Rebecca's twins remained. The 4-generation photo with great-grandma, everyone except my son. See. Lucas pointed to the caption under the latest batch. Finally, perfect family photos. Thanks to Rebecca's editing skills. The comments made my stomach turn. Aunt Linda, beautiful? The composition is so much better. Mom's friend Carol, your family is picture perfect. Cousin Mark, these look professional now. With shaking hands, I clicked on Rebecca's profile. Her status from yesterday: spent all night fixing the family reunion photos. Removed distractions and weird shadows. Mom loves them. Hashtag Photoshop, hashtag AI editing, hashtag perfect family. Distractions, weird shadows. She meant my son. "Lucas, baby, let me handle this," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Why don't you go play with your Legos?" "Did I do something bad?" he asked, his brown eyes, the same eyes that apparently ruined the aesthetic, swimming with tears. No, sweetheart. You're perfect. This is a grown-up mistake that I'm going to fix right now." The moment he left the room, I called Rebecca. She answered on the third ring, voice bright. "Hey, Emma, did you see the photos? They turned out amazing." "You edited my son out of every family photo," I said, not bothering with pleasantries. "Oh, that." She laughed, actually laughed. "Yeah, the AI tool I'm using is incredible. It seamlessly removes elements that throw off the visual balance." "Elements? Visual balance? That's my child you're talking about." "Emma, don't be dramatic. Lucas is adorable, but he's so fidgety in photos. Always making faces or looking away. He ruins the aesthetic. He ruins the aesthetic." I was shouting now. "The twins know how to pose properly," she continued, oblivious to my rage. "They smile on cue, wear coordinating outfits. Lucas with his superhero shirts and silly faces, it just doesn't fit the vision." "What vision? These are family photos, not a fashion shoot. Mom specifically asked me to fix them. She's been wanting professional-looking photos for her Christmas cards. Now she has them." I hung up and immediately called my mother. "Emma," she answered cheerfully, "did you see the photos? Rebecca did such a wonderful job." "Mom," she erased Lucas, your grandson, from every single photo. "Oh, honey, erased is such a strong word." She just cleaned them up a bit. "By removing my child." "Well, you know how Lucas is. He never cooperates for pictures. Rebecca's twins always look so put together. And Lucas, well, he's a bit wild, isn't he? He's 7. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with him." Mom continued in that tone that meant she was absolutely saying something was wrong with him. "But Rebecca put in so much effort to make these photos card-worthy. You should be grateful." "Grateful? Grateful." My son saw these photos. He asked why Grandma thinks he ruins pictures. Oh dear, I didn't think he'd see them. They're all over Facebook. You tag everyone except him. Rebecca said the AI works better if you don't tag edited areas. I hung up on her too. David found me pacing the living room, phone clenched in my hand. "What's wrong?" I showed him everything. His face went from confused to shocked to furious. "They did what?" He grabbed his own phone, scrolling through the posts. "This is insane. He's been deleted like he's some mistake they're correcting." Look at this one. I showed him a photo where Lucas had been standing between the twins. Now there was just an oddly large gap, like missing teeth in a smile. You can see where he was. They didn't even do it well. And your parents think this is okay. Mom called him wild. Said Rebecca's twins are put together. Because they're robots. David exploded. Those kids don't move without Rebecca's permission. Last time we visited, they sat on a couch for 2 hours without speaking unless spoken to. He was right. Rebecca had trained her twins like show dogs. 8 years old and they already had portrait smiles versus candid smiles. They wore matching outfits to every family event. They stood in predetermined poses Rebecca had taught them. Lucas was Lucas. He wore Star Wars shirts and had grass stains on his knees. He made bunny ears behind cousins' heads and couldn't sit still for more than 30 seconds. He was a normal, happy child, which apparently wasn't aesthetic enough for my family. What do we do? David asked. First, I document everything, I said, already screenshotting. Every edited photo, every comment, every post where my son has been digitally erased. I spent the next hour saving evidence. The more I looked, the angrier I got. Rebecca had even edited Lucas out of casual photos, in playing with the dog, eating watermelon, splashing in the pool. She'd systematically removed every trace of my son from the family narrative. Then I started my own Facebook post. Interesting discovery today. My sister has used AI to remove my 7-year-old son from every family reunion photo. According to her, he ruins the aesthetic with his silly faces and superhero shirts. According to my mother, he's too wild for Christmas card photos. My son saw these edited photos and asked why Grandma thinks he ruins pictures. So here's what his crime is. I attached every original photo I had. Lucas making bunny ears behind Rebecca's twins. Lucas with watermelon juice on his chin grinning. Lucas mid-jump into the pool. Lucas hugging great-grandma, both laughing. Lucas being a happy, normal 7-year-old boy. This is what they edited out. This is what they think ruins family photos. A child being a child. A little boy who dares to express joy instead of posing like a mannequin. If my son doesn't fit your aesthetic, then neither do I. I tag every family member, every person who commented on the edited photos. Within minutes, my phone exploded. Rebecca called first. What are you doing? Take that down. No. You're making me look like a monster. You made yourself look like a monster when you decided my child was a visual inconvenience to be removed. It's just photos. It's not personal. You erased my son. It doesn't get more personal than that. Mom called next, furious. Emma, this is a family matter. It doesn't belong on social media. Oh, now it's a family matter. When you were posting edited photos everywhere, that was fine. You're embarrassing your sister. She embarrassed my son. She hurt my child. I don't care about her feelings. You're overreacting. No, Mom. I'm done. You want aesthetic perfection. You want Christmas cards with coordinating outfits and frozen smiles. Fine, but you'll have them without us. The comments on my post started pouring in. David's mom. Who erases a child from photos? Lucas is perfect. My best friend. This is genuinely disturbing. It's giving Black Mirror vibes. A mom from Lucas's school. My kid has ADHD and never sits still for photos. Imagine if I just deleted him? My cousin Sarah. I always wondered why Rebecca's photos looked so weird. Now I know. They're missing life. Then the unexpected allies emerged. Aunt Linda, who praised the edited photos. I didn't realize Lucas had been removed. I thought the photos just looked off somehow. This is horrible. Great-grandma herself commented, that boy's laugh is the best part of any photo. Anyone who can't see that is blind. But the best comment came from someone unexpected, Rebecca's own mother-in-law. This explains so much. Rebecca made us retake family photos 47 times last Christmas because my grandson smiled wrong. I've been biting my tongue for years, but this is sick. Children aren't props. As the post went viral in our extended network, Rebecca tried damage control. She posted a long explanation about artistic vision and visual storytelling, and how she was just trying to create timeless memories. Someone commented, timeless memories that don't include your nephew? She deleted the post within an hour. Mom tried calling David, thinking he'd be more reasonable. He put her on speaker. Linda, I need you to understand something. You allowed someone to erase your grandson from family history because he acts like a child. That's unforgivable. It was just a few photos. Every photo. Every single one. Like he's some mistake to be corrected. David, please, the holidays are coming up. We won't be there. What? If Lucas doesn't fit the aesthetic, then neither do we. We'll make our own memories, messy ones, real ones, with a kid who makes faces and wears superhero shirts and actually enjoys life. The fallout was immediate. The family group chat exploded. Some sided with Rebecca and Mom, talking about overreactions and keeping peace. Others were horrified, especially those with young children who suddenly realized their kids might be next on the aesthetic chopping block. But the real conversation happened when Rebecca's twins reached out through their dad's phone. 8-year-old Sophia asked to FaceTime with Lucas. "We miss playing with you," she said, her usually perfect posture slumped. "Photos are boring. Mom makes us practice smiling. You're lucky you get to be silly." Her twin brother Mason added, "Mom got mad at us for laughing at your dinosaur jokes. Said it would make our faces look weird in pictures." My heart broke for them. While Rebecca was so focused on creating perfect images, she was stealing her own children's childhood. That night, Lucas crawled into our bed. "Mom, am I really too messy for pictures?" "No, baby, you're exactly right. Every silly face, every grass stain, every laugh. That's what makes you perfect." Then why did Aunt Rebecca delete me? I pulled him close. Because some people care more about how things look than how they really are. But you know what? The best memories aren't the pretty ones. They're the real ones. Like when I fell in the cake at Cousin Amy's wedding. Exactly like that. I laughed, remembering how he tried to sneak a finger full of frosting and knocked over an entire tier. That's a real memory. That's what families are supposed to be. 3 months later, we had our own family photo shoot. I hired a photographer who specialized in lifestyle sessions. No posing, just playing. The results were chaotic. Lucas's hair stuck up. David had grass stains on his knees from playing soccer. I was mid-laugh in most shots, probably looking decidedly unaesthetic. They were perfect. I made a photo book and sent copies to everyone for Christmas, even Rebecca and my parents. Inside the cover, I wrote, "Real families aren't aesthetic. They're messy and loud and imperfect and beautiful. Lucas is in every single photo, exactly as he should be." Rebecca never apologized. Mom still makes passive-aggressive comments about professional photographers who know how to handle children. But something shifted in the family dynamic. Other parents started sharing their imperfect photos with pride. Cousins posted pictures of kids with chocolate-covered faces and mismatched clothes. The aesthetic was broken, reality won. And Lucas, he still makes bunny ears in photos. Still wears his Star Wars shirts to formal events. Still can't sit still for more than 10 seconds. He's also the kid everyone wants to play with at reunions. The one who makes great-grandma laugh until she cries. The one whose joy is so infectious that even Rebecca's twins beg to be in his silly photos now. Because here's what my sister never understood. The photos that matter aren't the ones that look perfect. They're the ones that show who we really are. And my son, my wild, silly, perpetually grass-stained son, is exactly who he's supposed to be. No AI required. By 4 a.m., I was curled on my bathroom floor, vomiting bile. By 5 a.m., my roommate Sarah was driving me to the ER while I screamed at every pothole. "Acute appendicitis," the surgeon announced after a quick exam. "We need to operate immediately. It could rupture any moment." Within minutes, I was being prepped for surgery. The anesthesiologist, Dr. Park, gave me a tight smile as she hooked up my IV. "Just a routine procedure," she said gently. "You'll be out for about an hour." I remember counting backward from 10, and then nothing. I woke up 5 hours later. The first thing I felt was pain. Not just the sharp sting from the appendectomy incision, but a deeper, cramping ache in my pelvis. Then I noticed my sister, Rebecca, sitting beside me, gripping my hand with tears running down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much, Lauren. You've given me everything." My head was foggy. "What?" Mom burst in, glowing with excitement. 20 eggs. They retrieved 20 beautiful eggs. Rebecca's finally going to be a mom. I blinked. "What eggs?" "Yours, sweetheart," Mom said brightly. While you were under for the appendix, Dr. Morrison performed the retrieval. Rebecca's IVF rounds failed, but with your eggs, everything's going to work out. I tried to sit up. Pain tore through my abdomen, two kinds, one from the surgery. The other, a deeper ache I recognized from stories my friends had told after fertility treatments. A pain that came from maternal needles reaching the ovaries. You did this while I was unconscious. Rebecca squeezed my hand tighter. Not to quarreled. You're single 32 and you said you don't want kids. I do. I've dreamed of this my whole life. That doesn't mean anyone can authorize a procedure on my body without my consent. It was perfectly safe, Mom insisted. Barely added to your surgery time. Dr. Morrison's amazing. Dr. Morrison, the ER surgeon. Mom waved that off. No, he's Rebecca's fertility specialist. We brought him in just for this. It cost a bit extra, but it's all done now. My brain couldn't even catch up with the shock. While I was unconscious in surgery, they'd arranged for an entirely separate invasive procedure, without telling me, without asking me, without permission. This was a serious breach of medical ethics, I said, my voice shaking. Rebecca looked offended. I'm your sister. This was a gift. I never agreed to give it. My father walked in holding a coffee. There's our hero. Rebecca's already at the clinic. They're fertilizing your eggs now. You're going to be an aunt. No, I'm going to be a biological mother to children I never agreed to help create. Dad's face darkened. Don't be dramatic. You weren't using them. Rebecca's been through so much. They're still mine. You said you don't want kids, Lauren. And that doesn't mean my body is available for someone else's plan. I could barely breathe through the betrayal. I had no idea how deep this went, but I knew exactly what to do next. I demanded to speak with the hospital's administrator. When she arrived, I spoke clearly, despite the pain. While I was under anesthesia for an emergency appendectomy, an outside physician, unauthorized by your hospital, performed a fertility procedure without my consent. I want the surgical records, security footage, and I want to file a formal report. Immediately, her face went pale. An unauthorized fertility procedure. 20 eggs, retrieved without my knowledge or permission. I want this investigated. Within the hour, security had sealed off access to the OR. The police were brought in. The hospital board was notified. What they uncovered was worse than I imagined. Security footage showed Dr. Morrison, who had no privileges at the hospital, being escorted in through a back entrance by my mother. Footage captured him entering the OR with non-standard equipment. Meanwhile, Rebecca signed documents in the hallway. But the most damning evidence, Rebecca had live tweeted the entire event. At the hospital, today's the day. Lauren's in surgery. In just a few hours, I'll have what I've dreamed of. 20 eggs retrieved. My baby dreams are finally coming true. Thank you to my amazing parents for making this possible. She documented everything. There would be hearings, investigations, lawsuits, medical licenses on the line. But at that moment, all I could think about was how deep a betrayal had to go before it no longer felt like family. She literally documented the crime in real time. Detective Juan, who specialized in medical assault cases, was horrified. They coordinated this. Your family actually planned to steal your eggs during emergency surgery. I showed her the text messages I found on my phone from the week before. Mom, Lauren's appointment with her gyno is Thursday. Rebecca, can we do it then? Mom, no, she'd need to consent for that. We need an emergency situation. Rebecca, this is taking too long. I'm 38. Mom, be patient. Opportunities come. They've been waiting for me to have a medical emergency. This is conspiracy, Detective Huang said. Premeditated assault, theft of genetic material. And since they've already fertilized the eggs, we're looking at reproductive coercion. While the police built their case, I called the fertility clinic. You have genetic material that was stolen from me, I told the director. 20 eggs taken without consent during unrelated surgery. If you implant even one embryo, you're complicit in reproductive assault. Ma'am, I have paperwork here signed by you. Check the signature and the timestamp. That signature was forged while I was under general anesthesia having my appendix removed. The clinic immediately froze all procedures, but it was too late. Rebecca had already had 5 embryos created. 5 potential children with my DNA created without my knowledge while I was unconscious on an operating table. I posted everything on social media. The security footage, leaked by a sympathetic hospital employee. Rebecca's tweets, the text messages planning the theft, everything. My sister stole 20 eggs from my body during emergency surgery because she's infertile. My parents helped. They drugged me, invaded my body, and stole my genetic material to make themselves grandparents. This is what reproductive coercion looks like. The internet exploded. Hashtag egg thief became the top trending topic. Rebecca's employer, a prominent law firm, saw the footage of her signing consent forms for procedures on an unconscious person. She was fired within hours. Dr. Morrison's medical license was emergency suspended. Turns out, he'd done this before, performed unauthorized procedures on unconscious patients for the right price. Dr. Park, the anesthesiologist who kept me under for 5 hours instead of one, broke down and confessed. Rebecca had paid her $50,000 to extend the anesthesia and look the other way. But my parents were the worst. They went on local news, trying to spin the story. Lauren is being selfish, my mother told the reporter. She has dozens of eggs she'll never use. Rebecca only needed 20. We were trying to create life, create grandchildren. How is that wrong? The reporter's response was brutal. You drugged your daughter and stole her genetic material. How is that not wrong? She was already unconscious. For appendix surgery, not egg harvesting. The eggs would have gone to waste. They weren't yours to take. The interview went viral for all the wrong reasons. My parents became the face of reproductive entitlement. People so desperate for grandchildren they'd steal genetic material from their own daughter. The criminal trial was a sensation. Rebecca, my parents, Dr. Morrison, and Dr. Park all faced charges. The prosecution presented it simply. Lauren Henderson went into surgery to have her appendix removed. While unconscious and vulnerable, her family orchestrated the theft of her genetic material. They stole her eggs, fertilized them, and created embryos, potential children, without her consent. This isn't just assault. It's an attempt to force someone into biological motherhood against their will. Rebecca tried to play victim. I've suffered 7 miscarriages. 7. Lauren has never wanted children. Those eggs were being wasted. The prosecutor destroyed her. Lauren's reproductive choices are hers alone. Your infertility doesn't entitle you to her body. But she's my sister. That makes the violation worse, not better. My mother took the stand and actually said, "We did what was best for the family. Lauren is selfish, keeping all those eggs when Rebecca has none." The judge interrupted her. "Mrs. Henderson, are you actually arguing that you have the right to harvest your daughter's organs because you disagree with how she uses them?" Eggs aren't organs. They're genetic material taken from organs through invasive surgery. If you'd taken her kidney while she was unconscious because Rebecca needed one, would that be acceptable? That's different. How? Mom couldn't answer. The verdicts were unanimous. Rebecca got 8 years for conspiracy, assault, and theft of genetic material. My parents got 5 years each. Dr. Morrison lost his license and got 10 years. This wasn't his first offense. Dr. Park got 3 years and would never practice medicine again. But the hardest part was the embryos. 5 embryos. 5 potential children with my DNA sitting in a freezer. Rebecca begged from jail. "Please don't destroy them. They're my only chance at motherhood. They're my genetic material, stolen from me. But they exist now. They're Brian's too." Brian, Rebecca's husband, had divorced her the moment he learned the truth. He thought I donated willingly. The court ruled the embryos had to be destroyed. Rebecca screamed at the verdict, "You're murdering my babies." "They were never your babies," I said. "They were my stolen eggs that you turned into embryos without my consent." The destruction happened on a Tuesday. I didn't attend, but I felt it. The strange relief of knowing my stolen genetic material wouldn't be used to create children I never consented to. Rebecca wrote me a letter from prison. "You've destroyed my life. All I wanted was to be a mother. You have eggs you'll never use, a uterus you don't want to fill. I have empty arms and a broken heart. How can you be so cruel?" I wrote back, "You destroyed your own life when you decided my body was your property. My eggs aren't community resources. My uterus isn't a public utility. My reproductive choices aren't family decisions. You violated me in the most intimate way possible. You tried to force me into biological motherhood while I was unconscious. That's not desperation. That's predation. It's been 3 years. I still have nightmares about waking up from surgery, finding out pieces of me had been stolen. I still feel the phantom pain sometimes, the specific ache of egg retrieval I never consented to. Rebecca will be released in 5 years. She'll be 46, likely past her fertile years. She writes sometimes about the unfairness of it all. How I've stolen her only chance at motherhood. My parents will be out sooner. They write about forgiveness, about family, about moving forward. But there's no moving forward from this. They didn't just steal eggs. They stole my bodily autonomy, my trust in medical professionals, my sense of safety in my own skin. Last month, I got married. My husband Tom knows the whole story. We're talking about having children when we're ready, on our terms, with full consent. My parents won't know. They won't meet their grandchildren, not because I'm cruel, but because people who steal genetic material from unconscious women shouldn't be trusted around children. Rebecca won't be the aunt she dreamed of being. She'll be the cautionary tale I'd tell my daughters. Your body is yours. Your eggs are yours. Your choices are yours. And anyone who tries to steal those choices, even family, especially family, is committing a crime. They wanted grandchildren so badly they were willing to steal them from my unconscious body. Instead, they got prison sentences and a daughter who will never speak to them again. They had no idea what I would do next. Now the whole world knows. Reproductive coercion is assault. Stealing eggs is theft. But we're family is not a defense. It's a confession. The smell of burning flesh is something you never forget. It's sweet and acrid at the same time, like caramelized meat mixed with singed hair. That smell filled our living room as I looked down at the perfect triangular burn mark on my forearm, still smoking, the iron steam setting having made it worse. My sister Celine stood there holding the iron like a weapon, her face twisted with satisfaction. We'd been arguing about her taking my laptop without permission, again, when she grabbed the iron from the board where I'd been pressing my work uniform. That's what trash gets for existing. My mother laughed from the doorway, wine glass in hand at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Maybe now you'll learn to keep your mouth shut. My father, watching from his recliner, didn't even look up from his phone. If I were her, I'd have burned your face too. At least then you'd have an excuse for being so ugly. I didn't cry, not one tear. I just stood there, feeling my skin bubble and blister, watching my family's faces, waiting for someone, anyone, to show concern, to call an ambulance, to act like I was a human being who'd just been assaulted with a 400-degree weapon. Instead, Celine set the iron back on the board and laughed. Look, she's too stupid to even react. Maybe I damaged her brain. Can't damage what doesn't exist, Mom added, taking another sip of her Chardonnay. I was 17 years old, 2 weeks from graduation, and I'd just received my acceptance letter to Stanford that morning. They didn't know about Stanford. They didn't know about a lot of things. I need to bandage this, I said quietly, my voice eerily calm. Drama queen, Celine rolled her eyes. It's barely a mark. I walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and examined the wound. 2nd-degree burn, easily. The pattern of the iron steam holes was perfectly visible in my flesh. I took photos from every angle, then carefully cleaned and dressed it with the first aid supplies I'd learned to keep hidden under the sink. Then I sat on the bathroom floor and planned their destruction. You see, what my family didn't know was that I'd been documenting everything for 3 years. Every bruise, every cruel word, every incident. What they also didn't know was that I'd been accepted to Stanford on a full scholarship, that I'd been working as a freelance programmer since I was 14, and that I had $47,000 saved in an account they knew nothing about. But most importantly, what they didn't know was that I discovered something about our family that would destroy everything they built their superiority complex on. I went to my room and pulled out the box hidden behind my dresser. Inside were documents I found in my grandmother's attic before she died, documents my parents thought had been destroyed in a fire years ago. Birth certificates, marriage licenses, immigration papers, and one very interesting adoption certificate with my name on it. I wasn't their biological daughter. I'd been adopted when I was 2, after my biological parents, my father's brother and his wife, died in a car accident. They'd taken me in for the insurance money and the monthly Social Security benefits. $2,400 a month for 15 years. That's $432,000 they collected while calling me trash, worthless, a burden. But here's the kicker. My biological parents had been wealthy, very wealthy, and they'd set up a trust for me that my adoptive parents had been stealing from for years, telling the lawyers I was mentally incompetent and needed them to manage it. The trust was supposed to transfer to me fully at 18, just 2 weeks away. It was worth $3.2 million, or it had been before they drained nearly half of it. I pulled up the email I'd been drafting to the law firm that managed the trust, attached the documentation of abuse, the photos of injuries spanning 3 years, and today's fresh burn. Then I added screenshots of text messages where my parents discussed using the retard's money for Celane's college and their new house. But I didn't send it, not yet. First, I had preparations to make. That evening at dinner, I sat quietly while they laughed about the burn. "Show everyone your new tattoo," Celane said, grabbing my bandaged arm and squeezing the burn. I didn't flinch, even though the pain was excruciating. "Leave her alone," Dad said, and for a moment I thought, but no, she's depressing to look at. Ruins my appetite. I excused myself and went to my room, where I spent the night backing up every piece of evidence to 3 different cloud services and a physical drive I'd hide at school. Then I did something else. I hacked into Celane's social media accounts. Not to post anything, just to download her messages. The ones where she bragged about bullying me, where she shared photos of my injuries with her friends, laughing about them, where she admitted to stealing from my room and selling my things. My mother's computer was even easier. She used password 123 for everything. I found emails between her and my aunt discussing how they'd hidden my biological parents' will, how they convinced the lawyers I was mentally disabled, how they planned to drain the trust completely before I turned 18. My father's phone backup to the family computer yielded the most damaging evidence. He'd been embezzling from his company for years, using the money he stole from my trust to cover his tracks. He'd also been having an affair with his secretary, using my trust fund money to pay for her apartment. I screenshot everything, every crime, every admission, every piece of evidence. The next day at school, I showed the burn to the nurse. She was horrified. "How did this happen?" she asked, documenting it with photos. My sister pressed an iron to my arm during an argument. My parents watched and laughed. She called the police immediately, then CPS, then the principal. By lunch, I was sitting in the principal's office with 2 police officers, a social worker, and a detective who specialized in child abuse cases. "I want to press charges," I said calmly, "and I have evidence of years of abuse as well as financial fraud." I handed over a USB drive with everything, organized into folders by date, by type of abuse, by perpetrator. The detective's eyes widened as she scrolled through it. "This is extensive," she said. "How long have you been documenting this?" 3 years, since I was 14 and realized no one would believe me without proof. But the financial fraud goes back 15 years. That afternoon, while I was still at school, the police arrested my sister at her community college for assault with a deadly weapon. My parents were arrested at their workplaces, my mother for child abuse and my father for child abuse and embezzlement once the police contacted his company with the evidence I provided. The social worker placed me in emergency foster care, but I showed her my Stanford acceptance letter and my bank statements. "I turn 18 in 2 weeks," I said. "I can take care of myself until then." She agreed to let me stay with my friend Jamie's family, who'd always suspected something was wrong at my house. That evening, the story hit the local news. Local honor student suffers years of abuse, parents and sister arrested. The iron burn was the lead image, brutal and undeniable. But I wasn't done. I contacted the law firm managing my trust with all the evidence. They immediately froze what was left of it and began criminal proceedings to recover what had been stolen. I also contacted my father's company with the evidence of his embezzlement. They found over $800,000 missing, traced directly to him. My biological parents' will, which my adoptive parents had hidden, revealed more. There was a house in my biological parents' names, rental properties, investment accounts, all being managed by a trustee who turned out to be my adoptive father using forged documents. Within a week, my family's life had imploded completely. Celane was expelled from college after her social media messages were leaked, showing her bragging about abusing me. No other school would accept her with pending assault charges. My mother lost her job when her employer saw the news. Her wine-fueled rants on social media about how I was an ungrateful brat who deserved everything she got, didn't help her case. My father was facing 20 years in prison for embezzlement, fraud, and child abuse. His company sued him for the stolen funds. His mistress disappeared the moment his assets were frozen. They lost the house. Turns out it was double mortgaged using my forged signature. The cars were repossessed. Everything they built with stolen money crumbled. At my sister's trial, she tried to claim it was an accident. The prosecutor played a video from her friend's Instagram story, filmed moments after the burning, where Celine was laughing and reenacting how she pressed the iron to my arm while her friends cheered. She got 3 years in prison and a permanent criminal record. My mother's trial was next. Her own wine-fueled texts and emails condemning me as trash and discussing how to drain my trust were her downfall. 2 years in prison and loss of any claim to my biological parents' estate. My father's trial was the grand final. Embezzlement, fraud, child abuse, identity theft. The charges kept mounting. The forensic accountants found he'd stolen not just from my trust and his company, but from my biological parents' estate, using his position as my guardian to secretly sell off assets and pocket the money. 15 years in federal prison. During the trials, the full extent of my biological parents' estate was revealed. After recovering the stolen assets and adding the interest and penalties my adoptive parents owed, it was worth nearly $5 million. All of it went to me on my 18th birthday. I sat in the courtroom as each of them was sentenced, wearing long sleeves to hide the iron burn that had started it all. When they were led away in handcuffs, each of them looked at me with such hatred, such disbelief, that the trash had destroyed them. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just watched them passively as they were taken to begin their sentences. But the real satisfaction came later, when I was setting up my dorm room at Stanford. I decided to study law, inspired by the prosecutors who'd fought for me. On my desk, I placed a small framed photo, not of my adoptive family, but of my biological parents, recovered from the documents my adoptive parents had tried to hide. Next to it, I placed a printed email from the law firm managing my estate. Your trust has been fully restored with interest and penalties. Current value, $5.3 million. And finally, a medical report, healing progress on iron burn, minimal scarring expected with continued treatment. That burn had been meant to mark me as trash, as worthless, as less than human. Instead, it became the catalyst for my freedom and their destruction. My roommate noticed the burn scar one day and asked about it. Cooking accident, I said simply, but it taught me something important. What's that? That sometimes the worst things that happen to us become the keys to our liberation. She nodded, not pushing further. That night, I got a call from Jamie, my friend whose family had taken me in during those crucial 2 weeks. Did you see the news? She asked. Your sister got attacked in prison. Apparently, the other inmates don't like child abusers. I hope she's okay, I said, and I meant it. Not because I forgave her, but because I was genuinely free from caring about any of them anymore. You're a better person than me, Jamie said. No, I replied, touching the raised scar on my arm. I'm just someone who learned that the best revenge isn't wishing harm on those who hurt you. It's ensuring they face the consequences of their own actions while you thrive despite them. The scar from the iron never fully faded. It remained as a raised triangular mark on my forearm. Sometimes people asked about it, and I'd give different answers depending on my mood. But I never hid it. It was proof of what I'd survived, evidence of the moment my family revealed exactly who they were, and a reminder that I'd taken their worst and transformed it into my freedom. They called me trash and said I deserved to burn. Instead, I'd risen from those ashes while they burned in the hell of their own making. And I didn't even have to light the match. They'd done that themselves the moment they pressed that iron to my skin.
I already changed the locks this morning, my sister Patricia announced at our grandmother's funeral, jingling keys in front of grieving relatives. The lake house grandma had built with her bare hands 50 years ago. Patricia had locked me out before our grandmother's body was even in the ground. But what would Patricia say when she discovered Grandma had been secretly recording every visit for the last 3 years, and the footage was about to play in the lawyer's office? My name is Julia Sinclair, and this is the story of how my grandmother's final revenge became my vindication. Growing up, the lake house was magical. Every summer, Grandma Rose would host us for weeks, teaching me to fish off the dock. letting me help with her famous raspberry jam, telling stories about Grandpa and the house they'd built together with lumber he'd milled himself. Patricia, 3 years older, would complain about the mosquitoes, the lack of Wi-Fi, the boring countryside. "Why can't we just go to Disney World like normal families?" she'd whine, while I helped Grandma tend her garden. By high school, Patricia stopped coming entirely. College, boyfriends, internships, always an excuse. She'd show up for Christmas dinner, take her envelope of cash, and disappear until the next holiday. 20 years passed like this. Patricia building her life in Manhattan. Me visiting Grandma every weekend, even after moving 2 hours away for work. "Don't you get tired of that drive?" my coworkers would ask. "She won't be around forever," I'd reply, not knowing how prophetic those words were. 3 years ago, Grandma's health declined. Nothing dramatic, just the slow theft of mobility that comes with being 91. Patricia didn't notice because Patricia didn't visit. But I saw every change. The way she gripped the railing tighter, how she'd pause mid-sentence to catch her breath, the new pills multiplying on her kitchen counter. "I should move in," I told her one Sunday. "Help out." "Nonsense. I'm fine," she insisted, then fell trying to reach a pot from the high shelf. I moved in that weekend. Didn't ask permission, just showed up with suitcases. Converted the downstairs study to her bedroom so she wouldn't need to climb stairs. Installed grab bars in the bathroom. Learned her medication schedule. Patricia called once during those 3 years. Once. "Is she dying?" she asked bluntly. "Because I need to know for work. Can't just drop everything." "She's alive," I said. "That's all you need to know." God, Julia, always so dramatic. Call me when there's actual news. There was actual news constantly. Grandma's garden blooming despite her arthritis because I tended it under her direction. Her joy when we digitized all the family photos together. The morning she taught me to make her mother's polished soup, crying as she remembered learning it herself at age 7. The night she had a mini stroke, and I held her hand in the ambulance, promising she wouldn't be alone. Patricia didn't know about any of it. 2 months before Grandma died, Patricia suddenly appeared, unannounced, uninvited, carrying a briefcase. "What are you doing here?" I asked, blocking the doorway. "Visiting my grandmother." "Is that a crime?" She pushed past me, heels clicking on hardwood Grandpa had laid in 1973. Found Grandma in her chair by the window, the one spot where she could still see her garden. Grandma rose. Patricia's voice went syrupy. "You look wonderful." Grandma studied her. "Patricia, it's been, how long?" "Oh, you know how busy New York is, but I'm here now. And I brought papers." My stomach dropped. "What papers?" Patricia pulled out documents. Power of attorney. Someone needs to manage Grandma's affairs properly. She shot me a look. Someone with actual financial experience. "I don't need managing," Grandma said quietly. "Of course not. This is just precautionary. And this one." Patricia produced another document. "Ensures the house stays in the family." "You'd want that, right?" "Just sign here." I snatched the papers. It wasn't power of attorney. It was a property transfer. Patricia was trying to steal the house while Grandma was still alive. "Get out," I said. "Julia, you're being. Get. Out." Patricia left, but not before whispering. She's confused anyway. Probably doesn't even remember who owns what. That night, Grandma was quiet. Finally, she said, "Call Thomas Brennan." "The lawyer?" "Tomorrow. Tell him I need to update everything." Mr. Brennan came the next day with witnesses. Grandma spent 4 hours in private with him. When they emerged, she looked satisfied. "It's done," was all she said. 6 weeks later, on a warm Tuesday morning, I brought Grandma her tea and found her gone. Peaceful, in her chair, facing her garden. Her hand was cold, but still soft, still wearing the wedding ring Grandpa had made from a melted silver dollar. I called Patricia after the ambulance left. "Finally," she said, then caught herself. I mean, oh no. How sad. When's the funeral? Saturday. I'll handle the arrangements. You've done enough. Her tone suggested I'd done too much. Already handled, I said. We'll see about that. Patricia arrived Friday night with her husband, Marcus, a real estate developer who looked at everything like it had a price tag. They went straight to the lake house, not even stopping at the funeral home. Saturday. The funeral. Grandma had requested simple, no fancy casket, no flowers, just people sharing memories. I spoke about summers on the lake, her teaching me to can vegetables, her singing polished lullabies when I couldn't sleep. Patricia spoke about Grandma's legacy and preserving family assets and honoring her memory through responsible estate management. Then, at the reception, she made her announcement. I know this is difficult, Patricia began, voice carrying over conversations. But Grandma would want us to handle things properly. She promised me the lake house years ago, said the eldest granddaughter should have it. I'll be moving in tomorrow to begin renovations. Cousins murmured sympathetically. Aunt Helen patted Patricia's hand. Everyone assumed it was true. Patricia was successful, married, the one who made it. Of course Grandma would choose her. I said nothing. Just watched Patricia perform grief she didn't feel for a woman she'd barely known. That night, Patricia and Marcus stayed at a hotel. Can't sleep in that musty old place until it's properly cleaned, she'd said loudly, ensuring everyone heard how generous she was to even take the burden. Sunday morning, 9 a.m. I parked down the road from the lake house, walked through the woods I knew by heart. The moving truck was already there. Patricia directing movers, Marcus measuring windows, probably calculating renovation costs. They'd changed the locks, as promised. The key I'd used for 20 years, useless. A Lincoln Town car pulled up. Mr. Brennan stepped out with his briefcase. What's he doing here? Patricia demanded. Reading the will, he said simply. As requested by Mrs. Rose Sinclair. We don't need a reading, she told me. Shall we go inside? Brennan asked. I changed the locks, Patricia said smugly. Brennan pulled out a key. Mrs. Sinclair gave me a spare. For this purpose. We entered, Patricia and Marcus confident, me silent, Brennan professional. He set up a laptop on Grandma's dining table, the one where we'd shared thousands of meals. Before we begin, Brennan said, Mrs. Sinclair insisted you watch this. He pressed play. Grandma appeared on screen, sitting in her garden last spring. Alive, vibrant, sharp as ever. Hello, Patricia, she began. If you're watching this, you've already claimed my house. You always were predictable. Patricia's face drained white. 3 years ago, you tried to steal my home while I was still breathing. Did you think I was senile? I installed cameras afterward. Every room, every angle. Would you like to know what I saw? The video shifted to security footage. Patricia's single visit. Her attempt to trick Grandma into signing papers. Her words. She's confused anyway. But that's not all, Grandma continued. Let's go back further. A montage. Every Christmas Patricia grabbed her money and left. Every excuse to avoid visiting. Phone recordings, yes, Grandma had recorded calls of Patricia saying, she's taking forever to die. And that house is worth $2 million at least, and Julia's probably poisoning her to get the inheritance. Now Grandma's face returned to screen. Let's discuss Julia. New footage. Me helping Grandma to bed every night. Reading to her when her eyes grew too weak. Cooking every meal. Managing every medication. Holding her during the mini-stroke. Singing the polished lullabies back to her. Thousands of moments Patricia never knew existed. Julia. Grandma looked directly at the camera, at me. You were my true granddaughter. Not by blood alone, but by choice. By presence. By love. Patricia stood. This is emotional manipulation. It doesn't change the will. Let's discuss the will. Brennan interrupted, pulling out documents. This is the will Patricia references, dated 15 years ago. He showed it, standard, everything split between grandchildren. And this, he pulled out another document, is the actual will. Dated 2 weeks before Mrs. Sinclair's passing. Properly witnessed, notarized, filed with the court. He began reading. To my granddaughter Patricia Ann Morrison, who visited once in 3 years, and only then to attempt theft, I leave the following. Nothing. Specifically, deliberately, intentionally, nothing. Patricia gasped. The letter continues, Brennan read. Patricia, you assumed my silence was senility. It was observation. You valued my property over my presence. The house you're trying to steal? Julia owns it. Has for the past week. I transferred the deed before I died. The bank accounts. Julia's. The car, the jewelry, the antiques you've already mentally cataloged. All Julia's. You wanted my assets, not me. Now you have exactly what you gave me in my final years. Nothing. This is illegal. Marcus shouted. We'll contest. On what grounds? Brennan asked. Mrs. Sinclair was evaluated by 3 separate physicians the day she updated her will. All confirmed mental competency. The security footage shows attempted elder abuse and fraud by Mrs. Morrison. Would you like to proceed legally? They were trapped. Fight it, and the footage would become public. Patricia's reputation, her career, destroyed. There's more, Brennan continued. Mrs. Sinclair set aside one item for Patricia specifically. He handed her an envelope. Inside, a single photo. Patricia at age 7. Sitting on Grandma's lap at the lake house, both laughing. On the back, Grandma's shaky handwriting. This is the granddaughter I'll choose to remember. Patricia broke. Not movie tears. Ugly, choking sobs. The kind that come when you realize what you've lost can never be recovered. Get out, I said quietly. You have 10 minutes to clear your things from my house. The movers, who'd been frozen in place, began carrying boxes back to the truck. Patricia stood paralyzed, clutching the photo. Julia, please. You had 3 years. 900 days when you could have visited, called, cared. You chose not to. I was busy. I was busy too. I drove 2 hours each way, every weekend. Took family medical leave. Spent my savings on her medications when Medicare wouldn't cover everything. Because she mattered more than money. You manipulated her. I loved her. There's a difference. Marcus pulled Patricia toward the door. We should go. As they reached the threshold, Patricia turned. What did she say? At the end. I could have been cruel. Could have lied. Instead, I told the truth. She said she was glad. That she got to die in her home, looking at her garden, held by someone who loved her. She wasn't alone. Patricia's sob echoed across the lake. They left. The truck disappeared down the road, leaving tire marks in the gravel Grandpa had laid 50 years ago. I walked through the house, my house now, though it had always felt like mine. Grandma's presence was everywhere. Her handwriting on jam jars, her sweater on the chair, her glasses on the book she'd never finish. In her bedroom, I found one last envelope with my name. Inside, a note. My dearest Julia. The house is just wood and stone. What made it home was the love within its walls. You brought that love when I needed it most. You gave me dignity in my final years. You saw me not as an obligation or an asset, but as your grandmother. Patricia will contest nothing. The footage ensures that. But more importantly, she'll live knowing she traded her grandmother for the idea of money that was never coming. Make the house yours. Fill it with your own memories. Plant new roses beside mine. And remember, the greatest inheritance isn't property, it's knowing you were truly loved. Forever your grandmother, Rose. That was a year ago. The house thrives now. I work remotely 3 days a week, tend Grandma's garden, my garden, and host Sunday dinners for chosen family who actually show up. Patricia sent one message, 6 months after the funeral, I dream about her. She won't speak to me. I didn't reply. Some silences say everything. Last week, I was planting new roses when I found a stone grandma must have placed years ago. Carved into it, love is presence, not presents. I think about Patricia sometimes, in her Manhattan apartment, surrounded by things that don't matter. She gained nothing and lost everything. Not because of the will, but because she'd lost it all years earlier. Every time she chose absence over attendance. Every excuse that mattered more than moments. The lake house stands solid, filled with laughter again. Friends visit, staying in rooms Patricia never slept in. We make grandma's jam, using berries from bushes Patricia never picked. We sit on the dock Patricia thought was boring, watching sunsets she never saw. And sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear grandma humming in the garden. Content knowing her home went to someone who understood its true value. Not the property assessment or the renovation potential, but the love that soaked into every board, every brick, every bloom. Patricia wanted the house. I wanted the home. Grandma knew the difference. That's why I'm here and Patricia is nowhere at all.